Hi, everyone. I'm Nikolai from Domino, and it's my pleasure to introduce the speaker for this session, Jing Wang. She leads the Vanguard's Enterprise, AI, and ML and Applied Behavioral Science group. Her team enables Vanguard's business to transform client experiences, investor outcomes, and business operations through the application of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and behavioral science solutions. She earned a bachelor's in physics from the University of Science and Technology of China, a PhD from the University of Pennsylvania, and an MBA in finance and marketing from the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. Jing, over to you.
Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you about essentially our data science evolution over the last couple of years at Vanguard, building a data science group and an operating model enabled and empowered by technology platforms so that we can build those solutions that our business needs to support the growth of the business, but also most importantly, our investors. So we started this journey in 2017 when I was a business leader. Although I have a PhD in physics, but I was not trained in data science. I never practiced data science in my previous life. But in 2017, the head of marketing at Vanguard turned to me to say, hey, we heard about this thing called advanced analytics, data science, which is all the rage in the marketplace. Help us understand what it is and what can it do for us, Vanguard, and how do we, if it is important and critical capability, how can we start to build it, right? So I started by going to Kellogg School of Business and took an executive course, a one-week course called Lead with Analytics at that time, and then subsequently they changed their name to Lead with AI as AI become more of a jazzy word. But that's how we started our journey. We started with a team about 12 individuals that are practicing marketing analytics in that domain. And at that time, that team produced our first predictive propensity model for one of our major products. And it was welcomed with great enthusiasm from the business. That's another reason we started to say, hey, this methodology, data science, could actually really beneficial to the business and to our investors. So we started the journey in 2017, and fast forward today, we have a center of excellence with about 100 individuals, and it's a cross-functional team with very different experts in different areas. We deploy a product-driven approach in our development. So we have those data science labs that are formulated very tightly around business outcomes that are critical to the company's success. We deploy agile methodology in delivering our AI ML products, and those solutions are being integrated into day-to-day business decisioning process. We are building enterprise AI ML capabilities. Those are launching production. And many of those NLP capabilities actually are built in-house as we realize that with some of the in-house capabilities, we can deliver better performance with lower costs. We're very fast forward moving in terms of engaging with the industry innovation such as generative AI. As we all know, it's consuming, I suspect, all of us in the room for the last couple of months. So what we have developed so far allowed us to really step in very quickly to engage the industry, the best innovation, and think about how to bring that insight into Vanguard to build solutions. So over the last couple of years, we went through a journey of really think what we want to be, really think about what's the vision we want to establish in terms of how Vanguard uses AI to drive that business value and impact. And then how do we grow, both in terms of people, but to attract people and develop people at Vanguard, we also think about putting them into the right operating model, support them with the right process, and give that the environment to allow them to do their best, produce their best work, and see the impact on the business results. and then continue to optimize, right, with the support of the technology development to optimize what we do and to improve the ROI from the data science organization. So I'm going to go through a few simple things. Nothing, I don't think anything is groundbreaking, but I just want to share our experience, and I think that story might look very different for every company, but hopefully by sharing my experience, will help you to think about how do you get on that journey in your own company. And I also hope this could be interactive, so I will hope to leave a lot of space, time at the end for questions. So for me, there are really four things that we need to consider when we think about building a data science organization. One is the team, right? As Nick said in his presentation, at the core of a data science practice is the team. Is the team of experts that work together, right, to create the solutions. And secondly is the operating model. So it's important when we think about data science, we think about is a team exercise. How do we really allow individuals in that team to function harmoniously together and orchestrate their work? And we need to empower them and enable them with the right tools. Again, data science sits at the intersection between the data analytics ecosystem, the technology ecosystem, and the business ecosystem, right? So we need to give them the right enablement tools, but also the process to allow them to deliver that impact, so that at the end of the day, it's the business value that matters, right? I came from the business side. For me, the first thing and the last thing is the business value, right? How are we delivering the type of impact that the organization is looking for the data science organization to deliver? And for Vanguard, is really importantly, how is this data science function helping us to deliver our purpose and mission, which is to help our investors to be more successful in their investment journey. So those four things come together, hopefully make it a flywheel that team strives operating together harmoniously, enabled by powerful technology and data, and processes will deliver that value, and that business value will allow us to attract more funding into the function, attract more talent to join the team, and then they can deliver more value, right? So that's essentially our strategy. So let's double click on the team. So it is, everybody knows, so I don't have to belabor the point, data science is a team sport. When we first started building this team, we heavily focused on data scientists. So when in our initial business proposal, we said we need X number of data scientists, we need maybe 2-to-1 ratio in terms of engineers, recognizing data engineers are important to support the data scientists to build the models. But we quickly realized that data, even more than the model, is a bottleneck, not only from time to model insights perspective, but really get the best model that could perform to solve the business problem. So we end up really lifting up on the data engineering side. And I also want to say that initially we sort of underestimated the importance of data engineer. We said, okay, data scientists, we're on the best of the breed, right? We went to the universities, we went to the industry to form all sorts of talent pipelines and partnerships and alliances. We want to get the best PhDs and master degrees into the data scientist role. But data engineers, we said maybe we, just let's leverage the contractors, let's leverage some, temporary resources. But then we realized that was a mistake, and it really hurted our ability to really kind of build that data model-ready data sets for the model development, but also at the end, when we deploy the model, right, to build that data pipeline that's closely connected to the data environment was, difficult. So that's a lessons learned. And then we need the machine learning engineers to really kind of deploy those models that build in the sandbox environment appropriately into our engineering environment. That is, not as strong as initially, but become more and more so as we mature, have 80 plus models in production at any given time. And software developers, again, help us to really put the solution in front of the users in a way that's most facilitate the interactions and usage. I want to highlight a role that was critical to our success, the product owners. Early on, when I went to, one of the best things I took away from the Kellogg education, like executive education week, is this concept of analytics translator. So the professors talked about analytics in the data science domain is a science. It's full of mathematics, it's statistical, it's probabilistic. It's very contrary to a lot of business leaders' way of thinking when they think deterministically around, I build a business plan, I put in this much dollars, this is what I'd expect, right? So this role of analytics translators is very important. So those are the individuals who are at the intersection between the business operations and the data science teams to really help the business to understand the art of possibility, right? That in early 2017, for Vanguard, data science is a new thing. So we need to do a lot of education in terms of sort of like come up with those ideas for use cases that truly leverage the data science capability to create that impact. So that's the first role of the analytics translators, to really kind of work with the business to think about the art of possibility. But then they are able to then translate that requirement to the data science team so that data scientists are not working in the vacuum. They can build the right solutions that ultimately would be smoothly deployed into the process of decision making. So those are very, very important. So we had, in the first stage of investment, we invested in the analytics translator roles. And as we evolve our operating model, they become our product owners. They take on a formal product ownership role, really start to help us to build that product vision, multi-year product roadmap, and really use Agile to orchestrate the team's work. So those are the roles. They don't need to be many, but they're very critical from my opinion, point of view to the success of the data science function. I see some of the data science functions very heavily and focus on the first 4 roles, really thinking about they are here to produce technical capabilities. There's nothing wrong about that. But thinking ahead of time in terms of how do you want to engage business and ultimately deliver those solutions, is ultimately important to the long-term success. The roles on the right are outside of the data science team, but they are critically important as well. We won't be successful if at the early stage of our team, there's no business sponsors stood up and saying, we're willing to champion for this solution. In early days, it took us 6 to 12 months to deliver one model because it was difficult every step of the way. It's for those believers in us who say we're willing to wait for the model, we're willing to work with this team to deploy the model. So they're incredibly important. So the next one is the operating model. So this is where we adopt 2 things through the last couple of years. One is the product development approach. When we first started, we thought data science are just developing predictive models, right? Business requests come in, we need to sell this product. In 6 months, help us to build a predictive model so our marketing teams can get a spreadsheet and the scores and then cut some data for targeting mail list, right? Mail list. But we quickly realized that what is more impactful is really looking at what are some of the critical business decisions that are being made at a day-to-day level for business unit, and really target those decisions with a product-based approach. So, for example, instead of building a propensity model for selling a specific product, really step back to say, hey, business, what's your priority here, right? To really kind of drive adoption of certain products and maintain the loyalty and cultivate the loyalty with that product and maintain the business profitability in that area. So if we focus on that outcomes, our products, our models become part of a bigger product, right? So we can work on target the entire customer life cycle. You can start by building targeting models, then you move on to the retention models, you move on to the churn models, and you move on to the engagement models. So you allow the business to target the entire customer life cycle and think about every critical decisions that the business needs to make across multiple audience, right? So that's the kind of product concept that we took on. We call it decision engines. Very early on, we said we are not building specific models, we're building decision engines. And those decision engines are product that data science team owns. So once we create that product concept and we move on to a product management approach, it is pretty clear to us that we need to adopt agile methodology, because the agile principle is where I think is really connected with us. Agile principle says that we need to put customer in the center of our solution and development, and we need to get constant feedback so that we can quickly pivot and adapt, and we need to break our work down to the smaller components so that we can execute quickly and frequently. And we need to really kind of bring the team together, so cultivate the teamwork, right? So, but it took us years on that exploration, because my Scrum Master says that the typical agile methodology is developed for software development. Everything is very deterministic. I know exactly to get to this goal, what's the release plan and what features needs to be released at what time and a date. Versus the data science is very unpredictable. Everything is exploratory and iterative, right? So it is still experiment for us, but we're seeing very good result, especially from the Scrum value perspective. We see that Agile is really bringing the team together to commit to a common sprint goal. And in that process, communicate with each other the steps, the individual works and how they come together, right, as a team. And we encourage team to be open and courageous and sharing, because the data scientists and machine learning engineers tend to be heads down in their own lane and work on their own things, right? So we really want to bring the team together. I have a full confidence in the agile methodology in data science. We're just taking time to find the perfect balance. The next part is enabling value generation from data science, right? So for me, that's three things we should consider. One is the model ops, all those platform capability tools. In early days, the Domino platform was incredibly helpful to us. When we started at Vanguard, the teams were just using SAS as desktop model development tools. And all our data was still on-prem. We just started migration to the cloud. So we're at this between state, and it was incredibly inefficient and difficult to build models. So with Domino platform, we made a decision to skip the on-prem desktop altogether. We just put a step into the cloud. So Domino allow us to start with a cloud-based model development platform. It offers a lot of collaboration capabilities across different data scientists, very easy access to all sorts of Python packages to allow the data science to experiment right away with their different methodologies. So that really allowed us to leapfrog in our development capabilities. And now as we move more models into production, it becomes a DevOps role, right? When you are having 80 plus models in production, continue to think about how do we continuously support and the performance of the models, identify trends, identify performance trends, meet model governance requirement, right? And think about continuous upgrades. Model ops becomes a very important part of our ecosystem for model management. So we're working to strengthen our model deployment side of capabilities, much more connected to the cloud platform deployment, because that's where most of our software technology platform sits. The data ecosystem is really, really important. In early days, as I said, all our data sits on-prem. They are all stored in different data sources. Bring them together, integrate them is enormously difficult. So in fact, there are two things that are really helped us. We went on a trip with another. We did a data science exchange with another large insurance company. They were one step ahead of us. They told us that to overcome this barrier, they actually got a permission to build a cloud, just data science cloud. In that cloud environment they're using, so the data scientist team would copy every data point generated from the company into their own cloud environment to enable them to build the data. We're not able to do that, but we end up standing up our own data engineering team that we upload our own data into the cloud environment where we work. So as a sort of shortcut, we would go out to find the data, we'll upload it into the cloud environment, and then we use Domino platform to build that data, to build those models. So those are early days. But as the company migrate very quickly into the cloud environment, now we maintain a very strong, close interactions with our data ecosystem, right? We want to influence our data management platforms and architecture and tools so that our data scientists can continue to cut down the amount of data time they spend to chase down data. And now more recently, we start to help the data management ecosystem. We actually use one of the early use cases for generative AI is to use Gen AI, the large language models, to read through all the Python codes that we use to do data transformation and take out that data lineage information and write it directly to Calibra. So that could cut down, majorly accelerate our ability to take that, create a metadata, and put the metadata in the Calibra that allow all the data analysts and data scientists across the company to access and understand data. So it's very, very exciting time. And lastly, is the last mile integration. So for years, we faced the challenge of we build a model is performing really well, but it sits on our shelf. It's not integrated into the frontline interfaces that the frontline teams use. So it took us many years to get our model insights into the CRM systems, into the web cloud journey, digital journey teams that they can use those insights to design their journeys. And that's really critical. I would still say we're in that stage. We're making a lot of progress, but we're still in that stage of last mile integration really, really effectively. And again, I want to call out Domino platform was very helpful in this respect too. The ability to build apps through the Domino platform actually allow us to quickly put our insights in front of the users in a very sort of easy to interactive kind of user interface. So lastly but not least is the business value. So for business value for us is cuts across all the entire flywheel. We would actually start, even in our early days when we have a small team, we would insist on only working on problems that are critical to the company's priorities and strategy. So we will work very hard to align when we generate those use cases. We want to go talk to the senior leaders of the company and make sure we have those use cases very much aligned with the strategic priorities of the company. And then once we build a model, 3 years ago, we started really kind of develop a methodology to help us to quantify the impact of the data science model. So every model is released through a pilot experimentation phase where we work with the business to set up a control and experiment groups for a period of several months. And through those experiments, we can actually measure what's the lift of using data science model on particular business KPIs. And we use those lift that's measured through a real experiment to quantify the impact of the data science models and put that in front of the business leaders. And that methodology took us a while to get to, but now for every data science model we release, we have a value attached to it, right? And through those, the sort of sharing of those values, this allowed us to tell a really successful story, right, to the broader audience across Vanguard to demonstrate the value data science creates. And it becomes a much easier job to actually make sure this function is continuously being invested in and very visibly highlighted across all different sort of communication channels, and stay at the forefront of the business executives' mind. So that has been extremely helpful to us. But the last, there are a couple of other things I think is also important when you think about the value created by the data science function, the social impact and the innovation. I think for a lot of individuals working on the team, those are the things that are important to them. So my data scientists, they want to understand how their work is truly impacting society at large, and how their work is impacting especially our individual investors. So really kind of bring that story back to the team so that our teams understand how their work is, is important, right? And data scientists want to stay the track on innovation, right? So that's, for those four things that need to be bringing together to really kind of help us to build a winning data science organization. I just want to quickly talk about use one example to illustrate the journey we have gone through, and I would love for some questions if possible. So as some of may know, Vanguard is one of the world's largest mutual fund company. So one of the three businesses in U.S. is to serve the full retirement plans, right? So we serve about 4 million participants through 401k plans, where we provide record-keeping services, and then we also provide investment options. So our goal is ultimately for those 4 million participants in our retirement plans we serve is to help them to reach the investment success that they have a nest egg built through the retirement plan when they're ready to retire. For many of the Americans, 401k plan is essentially the only place where they have retirement assets when they're ready to retire. So this is incredibly important for millions of Americans. So at Vanguard, we have an investment principle. We know that what are the right set of behaviors that every participant needs to adopt to maximize the outcomes of their retirement plan. Things like you need to sign up for a target retirement data fund. That's the best investment vehicle that average participant needs to sign off. And things like you need to invest at a level that you meet your company's match. Otherwise, you are leaving that 4% money on the table that if you're not maximizing those match. It's very easily said, but we know that most of participants are not active participants. They are not very active in interacting with their retirement plan. So many of the things are not adopted. So we went on a journey to really build a machine learning model to help our individual participant to adopt as many of those good behaviors and right offers through the plan that's possible to allow them to build this, in retirement nest egg. So we started in 2018, started to really work with the business to understand what do they need to achieve, what are the data, and start a small experimentation in terms of let's take one of those offers, right? And let's think about a small subset of participants. How can we explore different ways to really trigger the participant to be interested in this particular offer? So essentially targeting the right participant for the right offer so that we can improve this adoption rate. And gradually in 2019, with the success, we stood up ongoing experiment to test this machine learning model impact. Through seeing the success, we started to expand that model to include all offers and include more participants. And in 2022 and 2021, we gradually expanded to all 19 offers that the plan has developed inside the plan. And we gradually expanded to all 4 million participants in that plan. And not only that, we gradually improved, incorporated more data points, right? Not only internal data, but also external data like Axiom database, so that allow us to understand a broader set of the participant behavior, how they interact with different digital channels as a way to really figure out how can we, what's the best way to reach them. And we start to then in 2022, we start to expand those touch points beyond just emails. We start to touch them on the website. When they log into the web page, we want to give them the right message. And we start to actually explore right message, right? So everybody get engaged in different ways. So we're thinking about what's the best way to talk to the participants so that we can trigger that interest. Some of them are a lot more inspired by this picture of sitting on a beach at retirement. Imagining that vision will trigger them to act. But some of them are much more energized by the fact that they're lagging behind the average participant in the savings rate or the investment allocation, right? So by giving them that data saying, hey, your peers are doing A, B, C, D, and they're seeing this kind of success, will trigger some others to act, right? So we're bringing those behavioral science element to put that together into our machine learning models to also figure out not only who are the right people, what are the right offers, but what's the best way to talk to them, through what's the best channel to talk to them. And fast forward in 2023, we're also exploring generative AI. Generative AI, one of the things it can do is very rapidly generate very personalized emails, right? Before we can, creatives is sometimes can be a bottleneck in that process. So with generative AI solutions, we can quickly personalize the messages, right? And then deploy them through our digital channels. So this is the journey that we have gone through, working very closely with the business, really looking this as a product and gradually bringing new data, new methodology, new capabilities to the model to allow us to continuously improve the performance. So I will stop there and see if there's any questions that I can answer from the audience.
Thank you, Jing. My 401k is with Vanguard. I'm a good user, so I did
Thank you.
everything you mentioned. Thank you for sharing your journey. I have two questions.
Okay.
My first question is, I feel it's a privilege, like you manage data engineer too, because for a lot of company, there's different operation model. Sometimes data engineer and data scientists are two different teams. I feel there's a pro and con for each organization, operation model, to be honest. But I was curious, what's your feeling is, what is the right operational model works for your team, and what is the ratio you see working? Is that, say, 3 data scientists is a hint, you need one more data engineer?
Right.
To give you some context, because somehow my expectation for data engineer is, I go into a shop, all the data products already on the shelf.
Right.
I can get what I want. But the reality is, I feel a lot of time, data engineering team is very reactive.
Right.
They are way behind the schedule.
Right.
They try to catch up. But there's so many elements they cannot control because they need to get access, they need to do diligent work, have a relative longer productive cycle than data scientists. So I was curious, your thoughts, your experience there. And I don't want to take too much time. If later I have time, I can ask my second question. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, that is a great question. So again, it's a learning process for us, right? We recognize the importance of data engineers initially because we need to upload the data ourselves to the cloud so that we can actually use cloud-based model development platform. So that's how we started. But once we started, we realized it is really critical to have data engineers to really integrate different data sets and create the features that the data scientist needs. And by putting data engineers right next to the data scientists, they can work very iteratively, right? And very fast. So when data scientists explore certain features and they said, this is not there yet, I need some additional engineering, and then they can throw to their data engineer peers and get that working together. I think that has improved a lot of our speed to model development. And I agree with you, as the data environment improves, in principle, you can envision a future state where, with data lake 2.0 and all those other metadata, great metadata on top of it, and it becomes much easier to understand what data products are there on the shelf And how do we check them out? How do we bring that into our data environment? And data engineering needs should be less, but we're not there yet after 5 years. So because on top of that, there's continuous change in our technology environment. Every technology environment change brings change to the data. And we need to really understand how the data change impacts us. And that's like, it requires a lot of engineering effort as well. And we're using new data sets, right? So before we largely use structured data sets, now we're very much using unstructured data sets. And those new data, every new data sets we need to bring into the modeling process requires a lot of engineering help as well. And external continuous exploration of third-party data to improve the model performance, that also requires a lot of data engineering support. So in short term, I don't see us reducing the data engineering support right now. It depends. I think in some areas we have 1-to-1 ratio.
Thank you, Jing, for sharing your experience. One question I have is that, as you mentioned in 2017, when the senior leadership asked you how advanced analytics will help the organization. So to me, it sounded like before we even started to understand what the challenges and the pain points of the businesses are, we're talking about the methodologies there, applying the technologies, so we started like that. So in that kind of mindset, in that organization, it must have been a little bit of challenging journey to get them on board with what advanced analytics can bring up to the table, and then finally, establishing this team of 100 people. So in that regard, now all these data science initiatives that you are delivering, what has been the feedback from the businesses, especially in terms of the outputs that the team is generating, and how it is helping in, let's say, enhancing the models in the future?
Yeah. That's a great question. So your first part of the question is when we are trying to build a business case to invest in data science, you necessarily have to get to the place where you want to explain what is very unique about data science. Why is not a simple technology investment, right? Why is not a data analytics investment? It's a data science as a unique, to deliver this unique value, right? So there you need to get to a bit of a methodology, but not too much, because those are senior business leaders, right? So there we leveraged quite a bit around, we benefit from the fact that we're a little late to the game. At 2017, there's a lot of stuff going on already outside of Vanguard. There's tremendous, really great use cases that's being delivered by other companies. And so you can bring in a lot of external examples to really help them to understand why be able to predict client behaviors ahead of the time gives you extra ability to engage with them very differently, and be able to prescribe solutions with the recommender systems, right, will give you extra impact on the business strategy side. So, we really focused on very simple sort of capabilities of data science, if you will, and bringing external examples, and we brought in a lot of external speakers as well. And we cultivated some big business champions there, forward thinking, and have them to talk about how they start to work. Like as we start to deliver a few different models, we really kind of made a point for those business leaders to talk about how their teams are working differently using those models, and how that changes their ability to bring this very personalized interactions with their customers and clients. So I think those stories are really important, like when you start to highlight the success, right? And so the business value and reporting on the business value is at an aggregated level. At a business planning time, you could say, hey, we delivered $90 million last year with an ROI of 4 times, right? Obviously, this is a function you want to invest in, but to win the hearts, right, you really have to talk about individual stories and make sure you put that together.
I'm curious about upskilling. How do you keep all your team's data skills up to date?
Yes. That is really important. So I think we do, I would say three things. One is that although my team is not big, but we have a research function. So we recognize that data science is an area where it's rapidly evolving. There are new ideas generated every day. And so we need a research function to really stay abreast with the latest development of the data science industry and artificial intelligence industry, right? And they're not only looking at commercial products, they're actually much more looking at the research domain, the papers that are being published on different ideas. So that team was pretty critical to make sure we stay connected to the newest ideas in the industry and bring them in, prototype them, and bring other data scientists on board, right? And the second is innovation. I think the data scientists and the machine learning engineers, data engineers here, they have innate desire to be innovative, right? So they complain that if we laser focused on business value delivery, they're always in this short-term sprint of delivering the next model. They need more time for innovation. So we experiment many different ways. We experiment 10% time off. You do whatever you want, or experiment with journal clubs. And right now we're experimenting this idea, but every month we have the entire team 1 day off. That's 1 day for innovation, and then the team submit crowdsourcing ideas, and those ideas are published on a Confluence page so people can form teams, and they have that 1 day dedicated to work on those ideas. And it's working. We already have a few good ideas very quickly being worked on and prototyped. Now it's actually becoming part of our model in some shape or form. So I think the innate desire is there. We just need to give the teams the space and the support to help them to cultivate those ideas. But one thing, upskilling, I think what we find also important is the technology platform. The technology tools are also evolving very quickly. So with platforms like Domino, we have organized training on a new Domino platform. We organize training on a new data exploration tools. All those are great tools that will save their time, give them more productivity, but it also needs training as well.
Thanks a lot for your presentation. As you progressed actually along the journey and made significant impact, obviously at Vanguard, a lot of the business people have very good quantitative skills. So I was curious about, not necessarily going to citizen developers, but how did that knowledge actually propagate, and how do they want to participate as well?
That's a great question. So we stood up as a center of excellence. So one of the responsibilities we took on is to champion and educate the entire organization, right? This AI literacy, the data science literacy for the entire organization is something we worked on from the very beginning. So we think there are multiple ways. One is through day-to-day interactions, right? Our business sponsors, our business teams work with us on a daily basis. That's a great channel for us to disseminate information. We have community of practices of various shapes of forms, right? We have an NLP community of practice. We have machine learning model a community of practice. We have a marketing data science community of practice. We encourage our data scientists to actually stand up a community, find like-minded team people, and have a Teams channel, and then they can easily communicate. From several years ago, we started to organize an annual conference. We call it AI Summit. It was Data Science Summit, Machine Learning Summit, AI Summit, so whatever name will draw people in. And gradually, that is a conference we actually solicitate submissions from all business teams or data science teams across the company, and we have a review committee to choose the top, like maybe 10 most innovative projects that we would have them present to the company. That conference started to be, just 100 plus participant. To last year, we had actually 2 conferences, one focused on more research ideas, one more focused on more application practical ideas, and draw audience of like 800 plus individuals. And with a virtual sort of environment, it really can allow a lot of people to attend. And it's very interesting, our AI research team opened up their Teams channel to the entire company. And there are 800 people signed up in that channel, which is quite impressive to me. It's because that research is a lot of ideas are at experimental stage.
Hi, the use case you mentioned here seems to be more of a sort of sales and marketing use case. Are you guys involved at all in using data science techniques on the investing and trading side?
So our work so far, my team supports more on the distribution side. So we partner with the investment data science team. So investment data science, interestingly, has a different model because they are in average, right? On average, they are much more quantitative, right? Many of them have economist background, quant background. So for them, integrating data science skill sets into their day-to-day work is a more better sort of better model, if you will, than having a centralized data science team that's supporting business teams that are not as versed in data science skill sets. So my team is much more focused on the business distribution side, but we exchange ideas on things that we can collaborate, especially, I think, particularly around natural language processing is a capability we share.
Thanks for the talk. Really interesting. I think a lot of parallels with what we do as well. But one area I was curious about is that research function you mentioned, and I was curious about how that knowledge that's generated in the research function then spreads out to folks that are more product line, I guess you could say, data science, and then even to the business, so that they know what's happening and potential of what's cutting edge.
Right.
So because usually we start with the use case from the business and then work backwards. So it's how do they know what's coming so that they can think of use cases is kind of where
Right. So the research function is part of the team, right? So I tell the research function, the team has a lot of freedom on what they want to work on. I don't dictate to them what's the research agenda. But at the same time, I also tell them that we're not a OpenAI type of research team. We're not Google Brains that the first goal is publication. I say our first goal for the research function is to really think about what are those new ideas in the industry that can ultimately has a application in the Vanguard environment, help to drive business outcomes, right? So that's a starting point for the research team to define their agenda. So they would define agendas talking to the business teams, right? Talking to the business data science teams to think about what are the biggest challenges they face, what are the biggest business problems they face, and use those as the inputs to shape their research agenda. So I would say our research agenda is more applied than the pure fundamental research. And then during the process, we also encourage the research team to form shared projects with the business teams as well. So especially in Gen AI, for example, is an area, and natural language processing is another area that we find a lot of collaborations between the usage. For example, we build for one of our businesses, so the WISE business, we build a topic recommendation model which is really kind of recommend to the advisors what's the next best topic you want to talk to your client about, so that this client would improve its success for long-term investment success, right? And the data for that model all come from advisor notes and advisor phone calls. And to generate topics from those advisor notes and phone calls is a very interesting question, because initially we do keywords and then we do word to vec, but we are never happy with the level of topics that generated, and we want much more rich topics, right? So that's a collaboration between the business team and the research team to think about how now we have large language model, could we use it to generate much richer topics from those conversations?
I think we can do one last final question. Are there any more questions? No? Yeah?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I guess I'm curious to see your perspective, your own experience on, as you were evolving your solutions, right, and trying to solve more complex business problems and all that. How much of challenge and how was the dynamic from the interaction from the business to try to bring them with you in the reason why the models were doing what they were doing and the type of recommendations, type of solutions that you were proposing back to the business, right? How much of technical dialogue was happening, and how do you see that perspective?
Yeah, so I think business, we are getting closer and closer with the business as we evolve, and in terms of really kind of understanding and shaping those use cases, right? And the use cases are becoming much more complex and rich and critical for the business. So we are seeing like a more senior level engagement, if you will, with the business team. Now, before we maybe kind of brainstorm with the middle managers, but now we're brainstorming with the managing directors and their table around use cases. Right, so that engagement is very close, but from the model performance perspective, so we have ongoing, like the agile model gives you a monthly opportunity sprint, right? We get together with the business team to talk about how is the model performing, what's the next capabilities they want to add, what are the challenges for adoption. So we talk a lot of the things on a monthly basis to make sure the model operates at a level that is needed by the business.
Thank you, Jing, for the insightful presentation. Thanks everyone for attending the session.